Leon Bailey's growth in 23-24 is remarkable, and I'm going to tell you why. It's fair to say that Leon Bailey is having the best season of his career. The numbers are up, the performances on the eye are very, very pleasing, and he's playing, if not the best football of his life. And Aston Villa currently sit fourth in the Premier League, and we look like we're on the way to European glory and to qualify for the Champions League. Now, I've done an episode and spoke to Leon Bailey's father, Craig Butler, talking all about how Unai Emery has transformed Leon Bailey's season at Aston Villa and his career at Aston Villa. He's revitalised him. And there were some really good indications from that interview of certain snippets that only close family and friends of Leon Bailey would understand. We can all look at Leon Bailey as a player from a distance, from the stands, and look at him and think, yes, this is working. We can listen to him on interviews where he does little sound bites, and you can gauge an understanding of what Leon Bailey is all about. But it's only when you talk to people that are close to Bailey where you really start to open up and see what makes Leon Bailey tick and how Leon Bailey can improve and how good he can get. So going back to the Craig Butler episode that I did, there was one word that he used about Leon Bailey: unpredictable. The unpredictable nature of Leon Bailey now has catapulted his game. And the other factor that Craig Butler said was that Unai Emery has allowed Leon Bailey to be free and be himself. And those two characteristics in Bailey's game are the reason why he's shining so brightly for Aston Villa. But it's not always been plain sailing for Leon Bailey at Aston Villa. When Leon Bailey arrived at Aston Villa, he burst onto the scene with an absolute rocket strike against Everton. And we were all thinking, Grealish who? Who needs Grealish? Here's Leon Bailey. We've got the player who is going to catapult Aston Villa to the top echelons of the Premier League. But it wasn't the case. Injuries plagued Leon Bailey's first season, and it was frustrating to watch because we all knew that that player was there. Dean Smith gets sacked, in comes Steven Gerrard, and Steven Gerrard had a weird way of setting up his football team. His fullbacks were wingers, his wide players were fullbacks, and there was no use of wingers whatsoever. So Leon Bailey's game faltered in those games at Aston Villa when Steven Gerrard was there. Steven Gerrard gets sacked. Unai Emery comes in. We start to see a little bit of Leon Bailey. But within Unai Emery's first half a season, while we were still trying to survive, and then we qualified for Europe, we were a little bit more defensive. So again, we still didn't see the freedom of Leon Bailey. But 23-24, we have seen the rise of Leon Bailey. I'm just going to share with you now some of the heat maps of Leon Bailey's time at Aston Villa. So if we go back to the first season, Dean Smith, we've got here a heat map, very scatty, only started 7 games, scored 1 goal in the Premier League. Second season, partly with Steven Gerrard and Unai Emery, we've got a little bit more of that red sort of heat map getting into those advanced areas. 26 games started, 4 goals, and we'd got 4 assists as well. We then get into this season under Unai Emery, where Aston Villa were absolutely smashing it, and we've got 16 games started, 8 goals, and we've got 8 assists as well in the Premier League. But look at the heat map. I've showed you 3 heat maps, and this one has Leon Bailey in that 18-yard box, driving into there, playing those progressive passes, and just being absolutely unbelievable for Aston Villa. So when we're looking at Leon Bailey, what can we see from the stands? What can we see from him this season? Well, we can see what Craig Butler's talking about. We can see the freedom. We can see the unpredictable nature of him, whether he's drifting left or drifting right, whether he's shooting on his left or whether he's shooting on his right. There's that unpredictable nature there for us all to see. But what we're also seeing is more confidence, more belief, more desire, more passion, more skill, more trickery, more power, more pace, more desire, and that winning mentality seeping through Leon Bailey. We're starting to see a bit of leadership coming through from him as well, dragging the team up when's needed. We can rely on Leon Bailey now, which is absolutely amazing. He's also improved his defensive work, so in those defensive zones, his little one-touch passing, confident, playing in those tight areas as well. So it's just absolutely unbelievable. And I've said before, when Leon Bailey picks up that ball at Aston Villa and at Villa Park, the stadium erupts and we expect things to happen. And it's absolutely amazing. So now we're going to go to X value and we're really going to see the stats and the progress from each season we've had with Leon Bailey. So we're going to go to X value now and see some of the data and see some of the stats of what's improved massively with Leon Bailey at Aston Villa. So you can see on the right-hand side, you've got that heat map. That heat map has just blown up. It's lit up. It's a light. That heat map is now a light. But then we've got some of his numbers from some of his seasons. And when we're talking about, is he having the best season of his career, then these numbers will tell you that this is going to be the best season. So if you have a look at the 2020-21, arguably so far to date, his best season. He scored one more goal than he has this season with 8 assists. I expect him to eclipse that number this season. So we are talking about this is his best season. We've then got his first season at Aston Villa, 1 goal, 2 assists. Next season, 4 and 4. And then this season, we've got 8 goals and 8 assists. So those numbers do back up everything that we're talking about with Leon Bailey's performances and how he's doing at Aston Villa this season. So here is now the interesting part where you guys at home can really see the comparison of Leon Bailey's seasons at Aston Villa. So first season, this is goals now. So Leon Bailey's goals per 90 is at 0.48. So as you can see now, there's a stark rise when we get into the 23-24 season. He's averaging 2.65 shots per 90. And as you can see, that there's a stark rise in that number this season. His shots on target is also rising, a little bit lower than what it was on the 21-22 season, but this season is starting to get there as well. His shot success ratio, again, is on the rise at 34.1%. His goal conversion ratio is sky high, so that now is going on a very, very high vertical line. Assists are what he's doing really well in the Premier League as well. He's one of the leaders in assists in the Premier League at 0.48. And as you can see, there's a stark rise in his assists per 90. And his chances created per 90, again, has improved. And a lot of these spikes are now starting to look like the best statistical versions of Leon Bailey. So if we go up on build-up and one-to-ones, he's attempted 517 passes. So per 90, that's 31.1 passes per 90. He's got 77.8% passing accuracy, again, which is on the rise. Attempted crosses is low, but we're going to get onto that in a second. His attempted crosses are low because he's not actively playing as an out-and-out winger. He's drifting inside. He's inverting a lot. So he's the one that we want to be getting on the end of things. We don't necessarily at times want him to always be the provider. And our system moves around, whether he's playing next to Watkins, dropping into a box midfield, or predominantly being on that right-hand side, drifting inside and playing those little slide rule, playing those little through ball passes to Ollie Watkins. But his cross success ratio is at 17.5%. His dual success ratio is slightly higher on 42.2. His attempted dribbles are higher on 4.75. And his success rate on those dribbles are high as well. One of the criticisms I gave Bailey in the early days at Aston Villa was that he showed the ball to the opposition too much and he allowed them to nick the ball off him, and then we was hit on a transition. But now with that unpredictable nature of Leon Bailey, with that confidence of going left, going right, going forward, coming back a little bit, we're starting to see different variations and different moves from Leon Bailey, and his successful dribbles are over half. So over half of his dribbles now are becoming successful, which is massive. And his aerial success, which I don't think is one of his strong points, to be honest, anyway, is at 37.9. His defensive work, if we have a little look at his tackles, a little bit lower, but he does do some defensive work. Interceptions are good. They're on the rise, which is great. And his blocks, he's got 1 block as well, so per 90. I don't imagine those blocks are that high. It's 0.06, so not that high. But you can see some of the stark contrasts on the rise of his performances and something that's really, really good. So if we have a look at the creative side of things now, the area of his game that he excels in, the stuff that we love, you know, we love it when we sign these attacking beautiful players, but then when we start to see it on the pitch and it comes off, then it's just majestic. So per 90, expected goals per 90 is at 0.31. He's got non-penalty XG of 0.31, which is really, really good. But then what we've also got is his chance creation per 90, which is very high. So his expected assists are 0.39. From open play, it's 0.36, which is very, very good. Now, here's a graphic which I think you're going to like. So we can see a comparison of players that are playing in the Premier League, which is going to be a good barometer of how well he's doing. So if we have a look at his non-penalty XG, so his non-penalty XG, I think he's in and around 36. So it's at 0.31. Players that are, I would say, are similar to him. You've got Anthony Gordon, who's a winger, playing at 0.33. The highest, well, we've got the highest, which is Fatty at 0.74. We've got Richarlison at 0.66 and Kunku at 0.64. Timo Werner at 0.59. So that's non-penalty XG. We've got expected assists. And our boy Leon Bailey's at the top of that for expected assists. 0.36. He's ahead of Doku. I don't know how he's ahead of Doku. They're level on the same ones, but he's ahead of Salah, head of Elliott, head of Palmer, head of Saka, head of Son. Musa Diaby's on 0.26. I've already spoke about Diaby on a few episodes, saying that his numbers are very, very high, and they're higher than what I think a lot of people would give him. So XG of expected assists is very high. Expected threat on passes, we have 0.13, so he's in 6th place for those. You know, he's in esteemed company there with Paqueta, Palmer, Maddison, Salah, Brooks and Doku. So he's not far behind those top ones. So his expected threat on passes are very good. Successful cutbacks. So let's have a look at those ones. As we can see, 4th place in the Premier League, 0.36. Mudryk is on at the top on 0.50. So he's very, very high on those this season as well. So he's just doing brilliant. Successful dribbles. He's in 10th place on 2.59. Doku is on 4.80. And if we see the final one, successful crosses, like we mentioned, he's in 41st place. Not really crossing it that often. But there we go. I really wanted to bring you guys an episode on Leon Bailey in the international break. I wanted to show you how well he's doing. Getting Craig Butler on scuppered that episode somewhat because he agreed to come on and talk about him and give a real good insight. And I think it's a brilliant insight from a family member, from somebody who's close to him. And it was just great to chat to him. And, you know, it was a fantastic episode. So many of you have watched it and you've really enjoyed it. And if you want to watch it, I'll put it on the end of this one if you've not watched it. But then I thought, you know what? Why can't I do that episode that I was going to do and tie them together to show you how well he's doing? And one thing that Craig Butler mentioned towards the end was that he felt that Bailey was only playing at 40% of his actual ability. And there's so much more to come, and that Leon Bailey could potentially be the best player in the world. That's a bold statement. That's a bold statement. But when you've been through adversity of what they have, why can't they believe that that can happen with their story? You've already seen the struggle to get Leon Bailey to even be a professional footballer. So now to reach his peak potential when he's in a position that he's at the highest level that he's ever been at, why can't he strive to be better? Next season, why can't these numbers be any better? I asked him, can Villa get top four? And he said yes. And he also said if they can't win this year, then they'll win next year. So I really think that we're only now starting to see a small snippet of Leon Bailey. You know, I've showed you the numbers from the season when he first came to the second season to this season. But how can Leon Bailey get better? And I think there's one way in which Leon Bailey can get slightly better. He can get slightly better with better players around him. And we look at the Villa team and we think, oh, what are you on about? How can you get better than that? How can you take out Bailey? How can you move Conser around? We've got Jacob Ramsey. This squad is going to improve dramatically over the summer. And with Unai Emery and Monchi and what they are building, you know, you've got to look at this team and think of how many of these players that are currently playing for Aston Villa are Unai Emery signings. We've got Pau Torres, who's a permanent signing. We've got Moussa Diaby, who's a permanent signing, and Morgan Rogers. We've got Tielemans as well. But the rest are all players that were already there, and we're going to move some players on, and we're going to bring in different players. And when I look at this Aston Villa side, and I think we're slowly now starting to get there with Moussa Diaby. I've also said that this season we're going to see a period of this season with Moussa Diaby where he brings that X factor, and we're about to see it. We're getting there with the Ajax. We're getting there with West Ham. So I am going to position a circle around this position because I think we're going to move Diaby around a little bit. I think we've seen Diaby go on that wide left area, and I think that may be a position that we can start to see him a little bit more. But when we want that link up with Diaby, it's brilliant with Bailey. But there has been times where that area has been a little bit of a problem for Villa this season. So that area, I see we may move and have some improvement there eventually. We've got this position and we've got this position for me. These three areas, once we get them right, are going to propel Leon Bailey's game and Aston Villa's performance. And I think it's just going to be absolutely fantastic. If Diaby moves over there somewhat and the system evolves and we have to bring a player into that area through there anyway, then maybe that's where we can see it. I still don't think we're the finished article at the back either. I think this season we've seen the three centre-halves and the left-back going forward. And I was really big on that in pre-season. Whoever was watching pre-season knew that this is what I foreseen Unai Emery doing this in the summer. I thought this was going to be his plan, and I did. And I think it's going to evolve even further. So once that area gets sorted and the defence looks a little bit different and central midfield evolves, then again, we'll start to see something a little bit different from Leon Bailey. And I think as Villa evolve, as this team evolves, then we'll start to see even more and higher levels. You know, 8 goals, 8 assists. If he can end up on double figures for each one this season or higher, we've got all of his Europa Conference League goals and assists as well. So it's fantastic. And I just love him. I love the story. I love the mentality. I love the attitude. I love the growth. I love how he wants to succeed. I love how he's adapted to Unai Emery. He's had a bit of adversity when he got dragged off against Liverpool, when he came on when we had an injury, and he came on and then he came off, and then he had to get his head down and knuckle down, and he's fantastic and I love him. So I really wanted to bring you this episode anyway. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've seen with the numbers how he's improved, and it just backs up everything that we are seeing with the eye test with Leon Bailey as well. So international break, you've had your Leon Bailey, you've had your Craig Butler. We're going to be doing a watch along for the England game as well. So we'll have a little episode maybe about how everybody's done on international duty as well. And then we'll turn our attention to the Wolves game as well. So cheers everyone for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Make sure you go back if you haven't and watch the Craig Butler episode. If you keep watching this, it'll just go on to that episode at the end. Drop a comment, like the episode, up the Villa.